When you speak to children and young people in 2022, they'll say things like their workers don't understand them. They're using language that we don't even understand. Some workers are still not even working with young people. They're sitting from what I call the ivory tower, thinking that with all of this knowledge and expertise and all of these amazing, pretty buildings that they have, that young people are supposed to come to them. When the principle of youth work has always been voluntary. The principle of youth work has always been that it's a luxury and a privilege for us as workers, for young people to want to come into our spaces. And many of us are not even engaging with young people. Some of us are 5 years out of date. Some of us are 10 years out of date. Some of us are 20 years out of date. This is not me saying this, this is young people. Young people are saying that they feel trapped. Young people are saying that, you know what? Education's long. So if education's long, I'm online and I've noticed that I can flip some money through doing things through social media, being an influencer as opposed to going to school. Some of us don't even know that's even going on. Some of us are talking to young people about being off-road and not being involved in criminal activity, but they're saying that they can make so much more money through stocks and shares, through NFTs, through cryptocurrency. And I know if I was to go around the room right now and I was to say to some random, can someone tell me about cryptocurrency and NFTs? There's going to be quite a few people in the room that don't have a clue what I'm talking about. But we're telling young people that they shouldn't be involved in county lines and selling drugs. And all I'm just pointing out here is the obvious, that we are so out of date with children and young people in the current context. So the biggest question is, if we are out of date, what are we doing as individuals to get that CPD to be up to the time? What are we doing within our organizations so we can become up to the time? And what are we doing different within our organization that doesn't do the traditional method of learning things amongst adults? What are we actively doing amongst children and young people to develop and learn? Because this is what we see. And this is just a visual representation of the stuff that Solve and ACT and other organizations that are in the room right now talk about. That based on some of the challenges and the issues that we're focused on right now, in that 10-year time frame that I've just mentioned, but now I want to include an extra 3 years of the impact of COVID-19, is that a lot of our children and young people are probably feeling a little bit isolated and lonely. Why? Because there are systemic issues at play. So I don't want to just talk about what happens on the ground and in the community. We can be here all day and talk about that because we know and we're very aware of what's taking place in the local community. But those systemic issues also contribute to the fact of why children and young people feel even more and more marginalized in its present context. But we're disorganized as a community, going back to one of the points that I just mentioned. Because some of us are doing amazing work. Some of us in the room are doing amazing work. But there's a number of things happening here. Number one, people are hiding and trying to do amazing work in silos because maybe they're worried about someone stepping on their toes. Maybe they're worried about somebody entering into their lane. Maybe they're worried about the fact that they believe that they are the only individual in that lane and should be in that lane. But you've also got other individuals that just don't communicate at all. There are individuals that don't communicate with the amazing work that's taking place. So then what happens then is, typical example, a week and a half ago, you have parents that will say things like, there's nothing taking place in Birmingham for young people. And I know the organizations that are in the room are doing amazing things for young people in the Easter break, coming into the summer break that's going to be shortly. So how is it that the parent doesn't know that's taking place in the community? How is it that the local teachers, the local nursery practitioners don't know what's going on in the local community? So there is a disconnection, which we have to admit. There's a disconnection somewhere. Either those organizations are either not promoting themselves in the right place, or they're not thinking of different creative ways to promote their services in the local community to the different parents and different organizations, or there's an ignorance that exists within the community that claims that nothing's going on, but in reality, parents and members of the community and professionals including haven't took the time to do any research. And how many times do I meet professionals that say, oh, there's nothing taking place for young people? But then I ask, when's the last time you went to the local youth centre? When's the last time you connected with the local third sector organisations in the community? When's the last time you connected with the detached youth work organisations in your local community? And they're like, never. So now you understand my point. So a young person in an environment that's feeling lonely, isolated, marginalised, alienated, in an environment where we claim to be all of these things, not working with each other in unity, you can understand then why young people want the need to join these particular groups. But I want you to think about this in context of what I've already said, the last 2 years. So young people, the vulnerabilities that was highlighted in the research by the National Youth Agency. So the highlighted things that was mentioned as the 7 key things. You can understand why young people want to join groups, because you remember me talking about fear, which I said was overlooked. So if young people are scared, if young people are trying to navigate their way through their environment, you can understand why they want to join these particular groupings. Problem is, however, is that when they join these particular groupings that are involved in issues within the community, there is a high probability that these children and young people are going to participate in any form of criminal activity. And then how do we respond? Arrested, residential care, child secure, YOY, or mental health services pick them up. But guess what? At some point in time, they're going to return back to the community, probably feeling a little bit more isolated and lonely. Not only are they more isolated and lonely, they also got new labels that we as society give them: ex-offender, criminal, thief, robber. And then we don't change. So then that explains then why they go right back to what they know. So going back to my point earlier, as I said in the beginning about radical approaches, this is what Norfolk did. So looking at this particular research, what Norfolk essentially did was calculated essentially how much it would pay for a child or young person to essentially go through these processes, and kind of estimated it was in the region between the 60 to 68,000 mark. And all the question was asked was, if £68,000 was used differently, how could we use it? And all those particular approaches then changed. So the radical approach was moving from a punitive model, even though it's about social care and help, it's very much a punitive model. And I would say most of our organizations, and especially when talking about statutory services, is sitting within a punitive measure or model. So we wait for something to take place, then we do something about it, and we're then very limited in what we actually can do, because we only got a little bit of resource for the things that we really want to do with young people. And when that doesn't work, we put them right back in. Typical scenario, young person's causing a cause of concern. Oh, we're just going to get him a mentor. Yeah, get the young person a mentor, get some mentoring on for 6 to 8 weeks. And then when that 6 to 8 weeks mentoring doesn't seem like it's working, then we do the punitive model. And that's my point. It's a flawed model that we're using. It's not being proactive, it's reactive, because we're waiting for children and young people to essentially do something wrong or be a cause of concern in order for us to be able to roll out our particular practice. And this is what becomes problematic, because what social media is now doing is exacerbating all of the issues. And that's why I call in my research social media murder media, because what it's doing by default is actually destroying our children and young people. Of course, there are so many positive and creative things that take place in the online space. That's not what I'm talking about here right now. But what I am talking about is how social media now is being used to not only exploit, to coerce, to manipulate children and young people, whether that is violence, whether that is joining groups such as gangs or groups that are involved in selling drugs or going out of town to sell drugs involved in county lines, groups that are involved in forms of extremism, whether that is religious or ideological based on race, whatever that may be. This is what social media is essentially now doing. So I'll go right back to what I said in terms of an approach. As your organizations, we have to ask the question, are we fit for purpose? Because if your organization is not using and engaging children and young people via technology and social media, just like with language, Just like with understanding young people in its contemporary time, we've already lost the race. This is not me saying that. This is what young people are also saying. So how are we using the narratives as workers to understand these particular issues? This becomes really important.
The course is the Working with Gangs and Serious Youth Violence Level 3 course. It's an accredited programme which is accredited through AIM, formerly known as OCN West Midlands. We have 8 different modules to the programme, which basically is designed to give you a holistic understanding of working with young people impacted by serious youth violence and gangs.
These programs are important because what we're trying to recognise in the country is that there needs to be a standard, and a standard around recognising how do we respond to serious youth violence, how do we respond to all forms of criminal exploitation as it affects our children and young people and our wider families within the community.
I think the Gangs and Serious Youth Violence course was probably one of the best things I've done in the last decade, for sure.
It's been a great experience so far. I've met so many people from so many different backgrounds and professions, working really widely across the youth sector, and it's been really helpful to listen to other people's points of views and experiences.
It was the first course, it was a certificate that I'd had for a long time, something that I wanted. I now write programmes, so I've written a couple of programmes on gang awareness and prevention, knife awareness, self-awareness, bullying. So before I did the gangs course, if you would have asked me to do something like that, I would have told you, I ain't got a clue what you want about, how am I gonna do that? So for me, the course was amazing because it's just opened up lots of things that I didn't know that I could do, that I'm now doing.
Being an adult learner, number one, and someone who hasn't been in, necessarily formal education for a long time, coming into a course that had so many options to support you through your learning, it was quite clear when I started the course that the objective of the educators wasn't for me to just get through the course, but it was to make sure that the students understood and had a full understanding and a holistic understanding of the information.
I've been looking at courses to do with youth and gang violence for quite a long time now, and this one really stood out, A, because it's one of its kind, there's not many about, and secondly, the professionals that lead this particular course are outstanding in their field.
We work with a range of practitioners, people who are specialists within their fields, who have years of experience in working with young people that have their own specialisms as well.
Bringing people in with lived experience is a really important aspect, and that's something that's happened. I grew up in an environment where I've lived around serious youth violence and can say I've been a victim to that. Also having people from communities that are working every day in serious youth violence come in and deliver to the people on the course or the cohort. So I think it's unique in that sense because actually you're learning directly from people with experience.
The importance of having people like myself on this programme as recognised as one of the leading experts in the country around responding to serious youth violence, I think it kind of gives that USP to the course, that it means that the organisers that have developed this particular programme have really thought about who do we bring in to give those real insights.
I've always done little one-day courses and stuff like that, but yeah, they're nothing like this. This is the course that gave me more knowledge and more understanding of working with young people, especially serious youth violence.
I have not experienced a course like this before. I've been to uni, I've studied criminology, had probably two good lecturers, but this course was just different. It was like, I actually looked forward to like what the topics were, how I can apply it and stuff like that, and it was like a little family. It ended up being like a little family, everyone helping out each other.
This is the only qualification in the UK. In fact, we've been hard pushed to find this qualification anywhere in the world, and we know because we looked. There's no other qualification like it. It's a course that is very much rooted in the community. It's very much grounded around having that holistic understanding of actually how do you work with young people who are impacted by gangs and serious youth violence.
That's why this course will have people from the police force, from social workers, from people who are working as teachers, people working in PRUs, people who are in the youth offending service. Everyone comes to this course because there are no other courses like this.
I think a lot of professionals make an assumption as to what serious youth violence is, and I think a lot of professionals band children into the term gang, when actually there is a significant difference between children that are engaging in serious youth violence, gang members and organised crime groups.
We have 2 courses which cater for, I suppose, different types of circumstances. So we have our distance learning course, which enables you to study alone basically. Go at this particular program, you get access to our portal, you get pre-recorded content, and you can just basically study this program by yourself. And that program is open all year round. The blended learning course currently runs once a year. So we usually start the course in and around April time, and it lasts until November, December. But the blended learning gives us the option to, work with other people and also get those lectures live. So that's whether that's live online or as well face-to-face. So it's that blended learning experience that we offer through our certificate program.